There's so many stories that we hear as clinicians where women are doing things out of punishment, right? That, they're eliminating this food or they're forcing themselves to exercise because they feel like they overconsumed. And I'm just so over that for women. And what I want them to do is to do everything because of self-compassion and love and worthiness. And I think when we give them the literacy and these beautiful concepts of tapping into our wild, all of that falls into place quite naturally. And women just rise to the occasion.
Welcome to Are You Satisfied? A podcast that explores what a deeply satisfying and fulfilling life looks like and how to live it. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Murphy, award-winning naturopathic doctor. I'm a passionate advocate that every human have the opportunity to live a life that is maximally healthy, uniquely authentic, and personally satisfying. So, are you truly satisfied? If you want more satisfaction out of life, then you're in the right place. Welcome, folks. Today on the show, we have Dr. Michelle Peris. She's a naturopathic doctor, tribe builder, speaker, women's empowerment advocate, mother, and definite wild woman. She's the clinic director of the Poppy Clinic, an integrative medical clinic, the creator of the wildly popular community health initiative called the Wild Collective, podcast host of the podcast Rebel Talk, and creator of Dr. Mom ND, an online resource for health-conscious moms and their natural babies. She's passionate about helping women of all ages and life stages listen to their bodies, tune into the wisdom inside, and help them create a life that feels good to live with energy and passion that had long been forgotten. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to see you. I have some questions for you.
I'm ready.
One is that I know that becoming a naturopathic doctor is not a normal career. It's kind of off the beaten path.
Yes.
So I'm curious to know why and how you became a naturopathic doctor. What's the story there?
Oh, I love that question. I was on a different path for sure. And when I was about done school, I was getting ready to apply to become a physiotherapist. And I had worked in this clinic for years as a physio aide and kinesiologist, supporting clinicians doing amazing work. But at the time where I was about to apply, they all started applying for med school. And that really obviously left an impact on me. I'm working so hard to become you and you don't want to be you. So what is that?
Wow.
So I remember digging a little bit deeper on that and their perspective of how medicine worked and just, triage of care and all those pieces. And so that at that point, I was like, okay, well, I should write my MCATs too. Just as a backup, I should become a doctor. So that was the plan. Do you guys call them MCATs in the US? We call them MCATs in Canada. Okay, same?
Yes.
Okay, cool. You never know. Anyways, so at that time, there was also a massage therapist at that clinic who I think picked up on other sides of myself that I didn't pick up on, which is, staying up entirely too late to study, being totally addicted to sugar, a bit hyper, very yang-y, if you will, if you want to take it to TCM. I lacked the yin rooting. I just was a very hyper bubbly person, which served me well, but I think she could sense the imbalance of it. So she had referred me to a master herbalist in Calgary, Alberta, and that changed my whole life. I was put on the elimination diet. I was put on a few Chinese herbal patents, and I didn't know that I was unwell. I was a healthy girl, probably carried about 10 to 15 pounds more than I needed to on my body. I didn't know I didn't feel unwell until I felt the capacity of being fully energized and managing sleep better. And all of these pieces, eating food that actually aligned with my body, that worked in harmony with everything. So that to me, was that pivotal moment in life where I started being okay, well, what do I do with this information? And that's really what got me down the rabbit hole of traditional medicine, then finding naturopathic medicine, looking at their curriculum and being if you were to make a school about things I would care about, naturopathic medicine encapsulated all of it. And so I, fast tracked everything and got myself in. I graduated from kinesiology in December and started naturopathic medicine in January. So it was just like, I just went as quickly as I could once I found what I was meant to do. So I'm incredibly grateful for all of it, because you're right. It really isn't, the normal path to doing things. And no one I knew growing up had a naturopathic doctor. This was not our acumen for health. It's just not what we were talking about. So luckily it found me, and I never looked back.
I love it. That's kind of a similar story for me. I was not going to go into medicine at all, but I was going to be a dancer. But it was a light bulb moment when I found naturopathic medicine, and it was, switch to pre-med. It's happening. Figure it out. Go.
My university career started in dance.
That's okay. So there you go. Well, we are definitely probably two wild women. I want to hear now, in this level of your career, I know you're not doing just a traditional clinical practice. You also have this wild collective. So I'm so intrigued to know about the wild woman, and who is that? Let's talk about the wild woman.
I was equally intrigued when I started this. I was like, what is this? What is the divine feminine? These were not concepts we were taught in school. This was definitely not my acumen. Like I said earlier on, I'm very young, very masculine in nature. So it's not my normal tendency to understand the yin, the feminine, that part was fractured in myself. And 7 years into clinical practice, practicing as a naturopathic doctor, working with all these women, especially in prenatal, postnatal care, and that whole mother baby experience, I really started to observe things about the women in my practice. And there were a few things that were going on at the same thing that incentivized me to try something new. One was, a lot of them, they were lonely. They were looking for more. I myself, as a clinician, was looking for more consistent results. I was dissatisfied with our current model of care. I just felt like every time I had a woman in my office, I could sense her enthusiasm for learning. I could also sense my urgency to go as fast as possible, because it's almost like I had this giant thought bubble over my head. Like, here are all the things I need you to know before you leave here, so you understand why I need you to care about these things. And I really started to also observe that, every 6 weeks connecting wasn't enough for them to actually get that transformational experience. So it's like they were in my office and they're like, I'm so grateful for this individualized plan. I get it. I'm so excited. And they would get plunked back into their everyday life, and they would meet some obstacle of any kind, a partner who didn't understand their nutrition changes, the desire for wanting to stay up late, even though they wanted to believe in sleep hygiene, or, the stressful work event that promoted, I don't know, them having a glass of wine when they said they didn't want to drink anymore. Something would get in their way of getting the results that they desired. And it just felt like this isn't working, and I'm not seeing the results I need. A lot of the women in my practice, I could tell, had outgrown the need for the regular one-on-one care. So you could tell they wanted to stay and hang out, but that model didn't fit them. Yes. So at that same time, I was seeing all of this wonderful research on community medicine, the longevity impacts of social connection and meaningful relationships. There was survival advantages for women that were clinically significant. Their chance of surviving post-cancer heart attacks was really impressive. Their reduction in cognitive decline. It was just like, there's no drug that seems as powerful as social connection. And here I am as this naturopathic doctor caring about lifestyle medicine, and I'm not screening for loneliness. And beyond that, I don't have a solution for my lonely patients. And so it was all of these pieces, plus reading Women Who Run with Wolves and this fascination with this wild woman, that I was like, here's what I'm going to do. It's going to be really exciting. I'm going to put women together in a closed group. I'm going to have them not only connect to each other and get the support I think they're lacking in their everyday life, but also I'm going to teach them a curriculum that gives them body literacy and helps them tap into this concept of the divine feminine, because she sounds fascinating to me. I have no idea what I'm talking about with respect to her, but I will, in like total honest humility, I will go on this journey with you. I will figure that out. But what I can teach you is about your body and everything you deserve to know in order to be a informed health consumer and a woman who knows that she's worthy, what to advocate for in the healthcare space and how to demand better healthcare. And so when we put all those pieces together, what we got was totally pure magic, and it just took off like wildfire. It just was the most beautiful thing to witness. Not only did women start to really elevate in their health, articulation of health in their body, but they started to really connect to each other themselves. They really started to transform all those obstacles to cure, all those, traumas, all the things that we actually, as clinicians, know get in the way of transformative health, but don't have the time or space in a one-on-one model to actually face that head on. They all started to melt away. And these women really were taking transformational steps and leaps in their life. And it was so inspiring to me that we went from just our little clinic doing it to over 90 clinicians, over 75 clinics globally now launching Wild Collective and impacting more women. We were able to demonstrate that this is something that all women have an appetite for if they had access, and that when they do engage in this meaningful way, that they get the results that they desire. And that to me was something I couldn't unsee after that moment. And every moment I have opportunity to sit with women and educate them about what it means to reclaim their wild, what it means to, be the authority of their own health and, leave the domestication process behind and really start tapping into their intuition and moving from their own desire and knowing their worth and moving it through their healthcare journey from a place of worthiness versus lack. There's so many stories that we hear as clinicians where women are doing things out of punishment, right? They're eliminating this food or they're forcing themselves to exercise because they feel like they overconsumed. And I'm just like so over that for women. And what I want them to do is to do everything because of self-compassion and love and worthiness. And I think when we give them the literacy and these beautiful concepts of tapping into our wild, all of that falls into place quite naturally. And women just like rise to the occasion.
I love it. I can hear your passion about this and it's really exciting. It's so true that, we can't teach all of our naturopathic education about health in one visit with a person. Like it needs to be broken down into steps like you can do in a program, and then even better, a group program where people get the support of each other. So what does it mean to reclaim your wild?
It's a really good question. I figured it out, FYI.
I thought you might have by now.
What does it mean to me? It's like an unwinding. I've heard this word and I think it's so beautiful. It's a rewilding. I think if you observe young girls early on, you see this innate ability, one, to know their worth. Their level of self-confidence is really high. They appear to not have any issue speaking and advocating for themselves.
Yeah.
And they just go after it. And I think somewhere along the way, probably because of core wounds and things that we choose to pick acceptance and, wanting to appear worthy more than be in alignment with our truth.
Yes.
And so reclaiming our wild.
What age do you think this happens?
I've heard it's like pre-puberty, but it's in full force in puberty. So my daughter is 8 right now. She's almost 9 and it's still fully intact. So I watch her like a hawk. Like at what point does this get disrupted?
Yeah.
But it's anywhere, I think, between 8 and 12.
Yeah. Okay.
And there can be like a single episode for a girl. And then that's it. It's like her world is rocked. And we all know this. We all have those stories, right? Where it's like you were forever changed because someone said something about your body or not being accepted or whatever. To be included, you felt like you had to do something. And at some point you abandoned who you were to be a part of somewhere else. And this was the journey for me, is I never felt like I belonged. I could always make ends meet. I could always be a part of something, but I never belonged anywhere. And that was the yearning, your mess being your message, because I never belonged anywhere. I had this desire to figure this out so that I could consistently reproduce this for women. Because when I actually belonged somewhere, and that was in naturopathic medicine, where I finally found my people, I was like, it felt like jet fuel for the soul. And I was like, do other women know about this? This is so powerful. Like, what can't I do when other people see the value of all of my assets? Before, my assets looked like liabilities. For a very long time, I felt like I had a ton of liabilities and I didn't have a lot to contribute. And when you have the right soil, when you're in the right group, all of a sudden, all of those things that you thought, I probably love those things about myself early on. And then somewhere along the ways, it wasn't safe. I abandoned myself and became domesticated. And the reclaiming your wild is becoming more and more and inching closer to who you truly are and living in a life that's in alignment with your own integrity and not so worried about how that's going to impact others or the world, as long as you're moving from generosity and pure self-love, compassion, and integrity. And then everyone wins when women are like that. And I think that's what's so exciting about it, is that is what we want to see is that level of humanity in the world. And I think the more we can influence women to trust themselves, that they are powerful beyond measure, when all of those things align, that's when we get to see really meaningful shifts.
Oh, I love this so much. So, and it's hinted at, if we look back to our childhood, it sounds like, to the little girl inside and how she might have been before she was conditioned by society. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's probably a lot of, this is deep work that you're doing in this program, and there's probably a lot that goes on in there, but is there any like one or two little steps or tricks you can give our audience about like how they can start reclaiming their wild? Like, is there some sort of tip there?
I'm gonna terrify them, but hopefully this like also ignites something in them. I think the most powerful thing that we can do is not spend a moment longer imprisoned by the stories that induce shame, which I recognize right now. I'm bringing up a lot of scary words here. I think telling our story is the key to coming back to our wild. I think when we learn that the world doesn't end when people actually see us for who we truly are, and in fact, they may even love us more, and we start to like actually break down the walls, the armor that prevents the world from meeting us. And when we start to do that, we actually start to feel free, and we start to tap into this beautiful wisdom and joy that was already there. We were afraid to let it out because we protected it, because a long time ago, we felt it was safer to protect the things that happened to us and project a story so that the world saw us the way we wanted it to be designed. And when we start to break that down, and I don't mean tell your deepest, darkest secrets, but like start telling your story in a safe place. Call up your friend, ask a really great question, stimulate a conversation where you have the opportunity to start sharing aspects of yourself that people might not know. And I think that has unbelievable power in terms of like how we can start to reclaim aspects of ourselves. Of course, there are other scary things like, tuning into our symptoms. Do your periods hurt every month? Do you get bloating after you eat certain things? Do you feel tired when you wake up? Those are beautiful indications that your body is not living in its wild self, in its innate pleasure. So, we can start to tap into that body speak, if you will, and say, I think something's not aligning for me. And I think when we bring those two pieces together, how our body speaks to us and how all of these little cumulative stories, our biography becomes our biology. Yes. When those two pieces come together, then we really start to be in our power, and we're able to self-advocate. And we also even know the root cause. I think the coolest, most powerful thing we can teach women is that all of the answers are already within. We're just helping reveal them and unlock it. So it's like, why it happened, how your body speaks to you when you're out of imbalance, and you probably know how to get back into alignment. And to me, that is like the most empowering thing we could do for women, is reduce this reliance on others and be like, you've got this. So how do we help you start to see it for what it is? And so I think when we start to create a body awareness, so we could do certain meditations, progressive muscle relaxation, what really forces you into your body to even feel your body. I think those things are really powerful for helping you see your body speak. And then I think telling our story is beyond powerful. And I don't think we give it enough emphasis. Oh, one more thing.
Yay.
Since you unlocked it, is we need to start treating community as a must-have, not a nice-to-have.
Yes.
Like that needs to be, and the last 2 years have really wrecked people. And I don't know what your world is like where you are, but our world is still very much recovering from the PTSD of like
That's
4
right.
lockdowns and like social distancing and not being sure if you can connect with people, if, you know, people are safe. Like it's a really interesting thing that we've seen where we know it actually boosts immunity to be around people. There's this interesting place where people are still, you know, reconnecting with their relationship with that. So recognize that, you know, when we have social connections, strong, meaningful social connections, and even that's just one, it can increase our life expectancy by upwards to 8 years. You know, by choosing to stay isolated or lonely, it's as detrimental as smoking 15 cigarettes per day or drinking 6 alcoholic beverages. So community and connection needs to be a must have. It needs to be very high up on the priority list. It's not a nice to have. So I think those are very powerful ways that we can start to, you know, reclaim our wild. And I think the cool thing about all of those is those are all free. Like you can do that today. So
I love those tips. They're really exciting. And, you know, the first one, telling your story, is not where I thought you would go with this. So it's interesting. And it's almost as if, you know, step one as women were taught to just, be okay. Everything's fine. I got to take care of everyone else before myself. And so that story, and even checking in with our bodies and acknowledging that things, you know, these symptoms that we're having are not normal. Stop suppressing them. Let's talk and listen to our body. Yeah, it's a really powerful thing. So I love this. I think this is going to be really helpful for the women out there. So what would you say, how do we as women, when we have so much going on in our lives and so many things to take care of, especially, you know, career woman, you've got the career and the family and everything else. So what's your advice to women to help, you know, get them off that fast moving train and slow down and take care of themselves and listen and, you know, start doing these steps?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And it's, we both know the reality of this. And I think it's the real miracle is the shift in perception. So it's, how do we decide at what point do we not tolerate the noise and the chaos anymore? And at what point do we choose to make ourselves a priority? And, you know, that can look like so different for every woman. We've got our like ambitious CEOs who are crushing it, and they probably have families as well. And we've got women who are the primary parent. They might even be homeschooling now. They didn't see themselves doing that. And they've got like all of these things on their plate. You know, the difference between them and me, honestly, is that I chose to make me my priority. And it's that simple.
A choice.
Yeah, I mean, that can trigger some because they're, you know, they want to give me the, yeah, but Michelle, yeah, but no, it's really very simple. And I chose, you know, if before, when I was at like even a year ago, I was so burnt out and broken and actually 30 pounds heavier than I was. Like I was so out of alignment of where I am right now, which goes to show you that it waxes and waves. We're all human, having a human experience. We are definitely not perfect as naturopathic doctors. So, you know, at that point, I had to get super real about what mattered to me. And what mattered to me was to heal myself, because I was no good to the women that I was leading to continue on that path. And so I took a break from work. I gave myself permission to pause. I did not go back till I was ready. You know, financially, what that can mean for people is that they allow themselves not to work on the weekends, that they don't work in the evenings. Like there are so many things that you can say. If you're letting yourself, you know, watch Bridgerton until midnight, maybe you stop and you go to bed at 10. Like there are so many ways in which we can, in micro ways, reclaim our health and say that I'm choosing me. And they don't have to be radical like me, like unplugging from life. I understand that that's not for everybody, but every moment we have an opportunity to choose us or sacrifice ourselves at the expense of something else. And I really think it's just as simple as making a decision that you are worth being in alignment and in love with your life. And this is what I say to women all the time. Like we have to stop hoping that a vacation down the road is going to heal us and something miraculous is going to happen when we're on a beach. Because if you keep holding on to that dream and not working on the day to day, you are going to end up in the same thing, you know, after the vacation. Like you haven't changed anything. How do we actually shift our perspective? How do we actually have the miracle where we actually start seeing the beauty of the pause in the everyday, the romance in the everyday, and actually like, drinking a glass of water when you wake up because you love yourself and you just love looking at that little lemon in your water and feel like you're doing something for yourself. Like it doesn't need to be complicated.
Yeah.
Right. For me, it was like, stop drinking smoothies because smoothies started becoming associated with an unhealthy work life balance where I didn't take breaks. I'm like, I'm not even going to stop to eat. I'm just going to drink my smoothie and grind. Right.
Yeah.
Because I have a toxic productivity monster within, and I had to break up with her in order to come back to the romance of my life, where I actually give myself 3 pauses every day where I sit and I eat in peace and I chew my food and I say, oh my gosh, thank you so much that I'm able to, have this organic meal and chew it slowly and be nourished by this food. And all of a sudden I had inner peace inside. And this whole thing is about reclaiming that inner peace and feeling totally in alignment and in love with ourselves. And it's so much simpler. I know that was a lot, but hopefully something of that landed for the women who are listening. Like once you decide, everything becomes possible from that moment. And it's just a shift in perspective. That's really it.
It really is. And I love, the idea too of just radical responsibility. Like nobody's going to come along and save us. So it really is up to us deciding what we want for our lives.
There's no white knight in medicine either.
Yeah. And exactly. Or a doctor, like the doctor isn't going to fix you. Sorry.
No. We've got really great plans. We're really great strategists. It's still on you. It's still on you.
Yes. Yes. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability and your personal experience with, fatigue and burnout. And I love, the strategies you had. And I think it's important for women to know that it's unique and it's individual. Like you were listening, tapping into the smoothies and the water in the morning and the different things you needed to shift.
That's
and each
right.
woman gets, each woman can, how they recover is going to look different, I think.
That's such a good point you bring up. And that's why we'll never get rid of one-on-one care. You need a strategist, you need someone who understands you and it's going to put together that plan. And I truly believe we would disrupt medicine and we would radically see different trajectories in health if every person knew the importance of being a part of a group and learning that level of information so that they were so body literate, so that by the time they were working with their one-on-one practitioner, they were dialed in, they were equally invested. Then we would see unbelievable results in healthcare. And we've proven that to be true, right? So because it's so individualized, water may not fix your problems, but maybe it changed my whole life, right? Or not having smoothies. But that is the nuanced beauty of individualization with a huge amount of self-empowerment that group health can give. So I think that model of care makes women unstoppable forces, truly.
A both and it sounds like community medicine is growing rapidly, right?
It really does seem to be growing rapidly. When I started almost 6 years ago, I didn't know anyone doing it. And it was a really hard sell. And definitely it's really taken off, which is so exciting. I think when we actually get to the place where people just recognize that it's a part of the healthcare experience, then we're going to be in a very different level of health. And I'm super excited for that day.
I love it. So this podcast is all about, satisfaction, which I think we've touched on, is how to live a content life. And I truly believe that a part of that is something you've mentioned in terms of tapping into our authentic, soulful selves and feeling free to be that, real person from the inside out and let that energy flow versus holding that back and repressing it. So that's wonderful. Are there any other ideas you have around, how to live a more content and fulfilling life that you'd like to share before we wrap up here?
Well, I think you mentioned a beautiful one. I think when we see the power of not having to hold on to these pieces, there's such liberation in that. And I think when we have that level of liberation, we start to get really clear about what it is that we desire. So, okay, I have a couple of things to contribute because I could really go off, but I promise to keep it to 4 more minutes. But I think having contentment in life, first and foremost, is being aware of your mission and purpose, like
yes,
having a clarity about where you're going and why you're doing what you're doing. It's what gets you out of bed every day. It's what gives you a level of satisfaction in everything that you do. Because what we want to be able to start doing, I think, as wise women, as we age, which I see such an awesome opportunity in that, is that we start to actually see the opportunity and the challenge, and we stop resenting and resisting so many things, which causes us so much suffering and discomfort, right? So, I think living with more contentment, more satisfaction is seeing the truth of what things are and seeing that everything is an opportunity for our growth. And when we have alignment and mission and purpose, I think that really starts to unlock. I think working on our mindset is absolutely key, really shifting the way we think, how we speak to ourselves, having a level of compassion to cultivate self-love and integrity. I mean, that gives such satisfaction and contentment in life. I think when women have body literacy, when they feel empowered, like they actually understand their body. You know what I'll say is, even as a naturopathic doctor, even a year ago, waxing and waving, when your body feels like a mystery to you, nothing feels more disempowering or dissatisfying. So when you can actually start to tap into your wild, when you can become more body literate, when you can do all the things that actually help provide clarity, certainty, and inner peace in your body, you just feel wonderful about everything. And to be on the other side of that and actually understand my body, inherently understand my hormones, my sleep, my nourishment, my stress patterns, my response, my choice to do it differently, like that empowered level of self-awareness, which I know is possible to every woman listening. That to me is contentment and satisfaction. And that gives me such joy, is to watch women be able to do the same thing and be like, I'm no longer a mystery to myself. And that to me is like, my job is done. You've graduated. Good luck with life. I love you. Like, it's just such a beautiful, empowering state. And I think there's so many women who walk around confused and mystified. And I think that breeds a lot of dissatisfaction. And it's just like, if the law of polarity exists, like the other side of the coin is right there. How do we help women tap into that?
Beautifully said, Michelle. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to connect with you further, how can they be in touch with you?
Thank you so much for having me. You can go to the-wild-collective.com. It's so embarrassing to say it loud, or michelleperis.com, or Dr. Michelle Peris on Instagram. I'm always hanging out on Instagram, and I'd love to connect with anyone who would like to hang out with me there.
Lovely. And on Instagram, you can also find a carousel of pictures of how Michelle and I met, which was at a costume party. And I just happened to be Beetlejuice, and she just happened to show up. We didn't know each other, as my wife, Lydia. So that was quite fun. And that was definitely me tapping into my wildness with that Beetlejuice character.
You were so fun. I was so grateful to see you there. And I'm glad that that's what really started this relationship.
Yeah, it's a perfect start. It was a perfect wild moment and a good start. Okay, thanks, Michelle. Well, I'll see you later.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Are You Satisfied podcast. Links for any mentions from this episode are available in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with me, go to drsarahmurphy.com. That's drsarahmurphy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Definitely tell all your friends about it and leave a review. See you next week.